Honestly, I was not much prepared for the mains answer writing part. So when I cleared it, to some extent, I was confused as to what should I need to do now. So there, as a beginner for answer writing, what things that I tried to figure out, which was very difficult for me in initial time, was the timely completion or speed, whatever we call it. This is where you clear mains with good marks, like clear mains with more than 800 say. But since I was a beginner in 2023, to be honest, I will admit it, because I have not prepared well, I was not good with this. Believe me, in the first structured test which I appeared for, it took me 3 hours and I could barely complete 15 questions. I was like hardly struggling with the 15 questions. But then there was no chance that I will leave it. In one paper, if you will write everything in a very similar manner, then even that evaluator will think that you think in a very one-dimensional way, or you are not able to diversify your thoughts. So hello all, I am Ujjwal Priyank. I have achieved All India rank 10 in UPSC CSE 2025, and this was my third attempt. This was my third attempt, but my second mains. The first mains in which I appeared was in UPSC 2023 exam cycle, and that mains also I was able to clear, though not with a very great margin, but I feel that I have been able to clear both my mains, for which I used a particular strategy which helped me, and therefore today I will like to share what worked for me in both my mains, that I could appear for the interview in both the attempts. So for me, when I went and cleared the first prelims, honestly, I was not much prepared for the mains answer writing part. So when I cleared it, to some extent, I was confused as to what should I need to do now. So there, as a beginner for answer writing, what things that I tried to figure out was based on 3 things. I believe that any answer writing that you will do, or for effectively writing your thing, there are 3 things that we need to do. And this I can show you on a Venn diagram. The first thing for sure is content. There is no shortcut to this. You need to have a good content at least in order to secure high marks in mains and then get your preferred service. The second thing which is important is structure and the presentation part which you have. And the third thing which was very difficult for me in initial time was the timely completion or speed, whatever we call it. So if we have all these 3, then we are in this optimal zone. And this is where you clear mains with good marks, like clear mains with more than 800 say. But since I was a beginner in 2023, to be honest, I will admit it, because I have not prepared well, I was not good with this. But I made sure in that attempt that I will work on these 2 parts so that I could reach at least this area. If you are in these 3 areas, then I find, suppose you are having content with timely completion, but you don't have a proper structure, still you can clear mains. That will depend what your marks will be, that will depend on a lot of factors. But in these 3 zones, you will be able to clear mains. So in my 2023 attempt, in my 2023 mains, I was focusing on these 2 things, structure and timely completion. First of all, whatever I have done in my life, I always think and then write. So therefore, I was not a very fast writer. So first, I worked on the speed part. And believe me, in the first structured test which I appeared for, it took me 3 hours and I could barely complete 15 questions. I was like hardly struggling with the 15 questions. But then there was no chance that I will leave it. What worked for me was that I kept on writing and writing. I practiced, say, close to 30-35 tests in my first attempt, so that just I can complete the paper on time. So yes, that worked for me, and that will develop once you write mocks, a lot of mocks, you practice a lot of questions, so that will gradually develop. For these parts, structure and presentation, what I used to do, that I used to take up questions that toppers have written in their answer sheets, and then I would use to write it, and then I would use to compare कि उन्होंने क्या लिखा है और मैं क्या लिख रहा हूँ. तो when you compare ना to the answers which toppers have written, then you feel कि उन्होंने कहाँ पे कुछ अच्छा किया है. तो like I try to make certain templates for my answers as to how will I tackle a question of geography, how will I tackle a question of economy. सो उस पे मैंने काम किया. कंटेंट पे भी मैं काम कर रहा था. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट आई कंप्लीटली इग्नोर्ड द कंटेंट पार्ट, बट येस आई द टाइम वाज नॉट सफिशिएंट इनफ कि मैं बहुत ज़्यादा इस पे इंक्रीज कर सकूँ. जैसे जितने क्वेश्चंस आ रहे थे मैं लिख रहा था, उन पे मैं अपने कंटेंट को इंक्रीज कर रहा था, थोड़ा बहुत डेटा पॉइंट्स वैल्यू एडिशन करने की कोशिश कर रहा था. बट येस, दैट ड्यूरेशन वाज नॉट इनफ टू लाइक ड्रास्टिकली enhance your content. But in my 2025 attempt, what worked for me was a mixture of three. All the three I tried to incorporate because I could not clear my second prelim. So I had that privilege of 1 year where I worked completely on my mains content, because UPSC gives a very well made syllabus. Just go through each and every keyword which they have provided. Suppose in GS1 they had given on society, the role of women, communism, secularism, regionalism, then in GS2 you will see a lot of topics are there. GS3 so directly they have mentioned the topics for internal security, so just go through the each and every word of the topic in the syllabus and then try to make notes out of it. Don't try to learn everything, क्योंकि again whenever we go for this, whenever we go for answer writing in the actual UPSC, there we have 2 sheets for 10 marker. It is like a A4 sheet, not exactly A4, but it is like this. So even if you know a lot about one topic, you cannot write everything in these 2 pages. So just try to take out or extract 1 or 2 value addition, 1 or 2 examples in each topic that you can really write in those papers. Don't try to learn everything or don't try to write everything in the notes. So this is the structure which always I used to follow. And then coming next, there is an answer writing strategy that works. See, in one paper, if you will write everything in a very similar manner, then even that evaluator will think that you think in a very one-dimensional way, or you are not able to diversify your thoughts. So I also tried to make diverse points. I also tried to keep my answers different in every answers which I am writing. So say I will start with my GS1 approach. So what happened is that GS1, it is a kind of static subject. It contains history, it contains geography and society. So what I worked on was that in history, my strategy revolved around maximizing the number of points which I am writing and trying to write as much as examples and write in multi-dimensional way. So for that, I worked in that way. Also, in history, we always think it is a very static subject, but luckily this time there were questions, such as a question was there on Indus Valley civilization. So there I wrote a conclusion which was relevant to the recent developments that is happening in Lothal. So that is a conclusion which is forward looking. In the question on Chandel art, I ended the contribution of Chandel that has been recognized by UNESCO, or the potential of tourism that they have. So I tried to make my answers look relevant to the contemporary era. And in history, I always worked on maximizing points. I tried ki history mein I could write 8 to 10 points in for 10 markers and could write more than 12, 13 points in 15 markers. Then coming from geography, what worked for me this time was that I was using a lot of maps and different things that I could use. For example, I could make a very small map. I could make a very small map here and then try to show different thing on that. So this way I am trying to effectively utilize the space which I have, and then I am trying to locate the places on a map that looks kind of, better presentation it gives. And then for society, what worked for me this time was that 2 things I worked on for society, since sociology is my optional subject. So in society, I worked on 2 things. One was using keywords. Like the keywords are very small, but they make your answers look different, and they seem that you are writing from what we call from a perspective, not a layman perspective, but a perspective in which you have read the subject well. For example, if you're writing about globalization, we can use different words like what is the impact on women if it is being asked, then we can write about that feminization of rural household is taking place, or like various such things. If the impact is being asked on urbanization, we can write about instant gratification, rising individualism, these type of things, and using recent examples is very important in society. And the second thing which worked for me was that I had made thinkers and their definition for various keywords. So I just try to quote thinker and the definition which they have used. For say in globalization, I could quote a thinker. For caste system, I could quote a thinker. For tribals, I could quote a thinker. So these two things worked for me in society: keywords and pre-made definition with a valid thinker. For GS2, again, it is a subject which contains it is a paper which contains three subjects. That is, first is polity, then we have social justice, and lastly we have international relations in that. So for polity, what I tried to keep was I would try to introduce any question with a proper article which is there. Say for example, this time a question on pardoning was asked, so I tried to quote Article 72 in that. Similarly, I tried to incorporate judgments which have been given. I tried to, for example, in the constitutional amendment, I tried to incorporate 2 to 3 judgments which are very common: Keshwanand Bharti, Minerva Mills case, and other one more I am not able to remember. But we can definitely quote various case laws, judgments, and committee recommendations. Works a lot in polity subject. Coming from for social justice, what I had made was that I had tried to identify the various themes which the UPSC is asking over the past say 5 or 10 years. Then I had made a list that these are the various areas from where they are asking, say poverty, malnutrition. Then they are asking questions related to women and their social capital, women empowerment, the challenges of motherhood in India, what are the various schemes that we are launching. Then in governance, we genuinely read about the things such as local self-governments, then how we are trying to promote decentralized planning in the country, and various initiatives that are being taken out. So these were the few themes. If you'll go through the papers, or even you can get the access to the theme wise segregated questionnaire wise, you will find. Then try to make 1 or 2 pager notes for every topic which is given over there. Try to have a valid data, a recent data. Say for example, poverty, if something is there, then try to quote the recent changes that have taken place. Say that there was a recent change in the global poverty line that we saw according to the 2021 purchasing power parity took place. So we can always try to quote new data that is taking place, or we can always try to quote certain examples that are valid in the example. So for social justice, what I did was I had my notes on the repeated themes that are asked every few years or frequently repeated. For international relations, PYQs I think don't work a lot. For IR, what I did was that since in my third attempt after failing my second prelims, I was following Indian Express very well. So what I used to do was that whenever any region was there, say African thing is there, or say any prime minister is visiting any country in the Southeast Asia. So what I used to do was that I tried to add those examples or write those examples, so that if such things come, I can relate it with the current affairs. Say West Asia, what is happening in the West Asia, what is happening in Africa, what is happening in Southeast Asia. And the most important in here is the neighborhood. Every year I think one question, or every neighborhood policy question is very favorite. Every alternate year or every year a neighborhood policy questions come out. So just try to figure out the broad things which are going on. No need to just remember every data, like every initiative which is taking place. Write broad ideas, say how we are trying to promote partnership, how we are trying to promote diplomacy, how we are trying to promote transfer of technology, how India is promoting its soft skill. So wahan pe bhi we can use certain keywords. We can quote here, as I can remember, I quoted Dr. S. Jaishankar's sir ki jo book hai, The India Way. You can quote books, or you can quote the ideas of are leaders. So you can do these things to make your answer look natural. So this I did. So this was my broad idea. So in GS2 in short, you need to have articles prepared, you need to have committees prepared, you need to have judgments prepared, you need to have 2-pager notes for the frequently repeated themes of social justice and current affairs update for the international relations part. The next paper was GS3. It is a very vast subject. A lot of subjects are incorporated in that paper. So for that, what I did was I tried to make a fact sheet. See, GS3 in short, if I am to give a broad overview which worked in my first attempt, I got 80 marks. Not very good, but it was a decent compared to what others are getting. So what worked in GS3? See, it is highly current affairs oriented. A lot of data needs to be given and examples needs to be given. And finally, for that internal security, for security, you need to have PYQs. Just see what they are asking and identify those themes. And at last, what you need is you can use diagrams here. A lot of scope to use diagrams. So for current affairs, I tried as much as possible to introduce my answer with a current affairs in GS3. Suppose this time a question on, say, a question was being asked related to climate change. So there I tried to start my answer with the perspective that how the global consensus is changing related to climate change. So always try to link the questions with current affairs. I made a data fact sheet for it for sure, so that I can quote examples. Say for renewable energy, what is India's target? We are targeting 100 gigawatt of nuclear energy. Then we are targeting 300 billion economy via biotechnology. So these were a few examples that I have told. I have tried to memorize close to 100 or 200 such facts that I can use across papers, not only in GS3 but in GS2, in GS1 even if I can use. So try to remember a lot of data for sure, and then examples. Don't just write common points there. Don't just write that this scheme will enhance employment or this scheme will enhance the export competitiveness. Just try to quote one example that how this is a threat. Say for example, this year there was a question on how the multilateralism is challenged. So there I wrote quite a good examples I can remember, such as there is a threat to the textile industry in India, there is a threat to the marine exports which are there, loss of jobs particularly in such sectors. So just try to write examples, and this you will get from any magazine, or say I was using newspaper, so you'll get it. For security, I've identified few areas, I had made notes out of it, and luckily I could solve the entire things. And diagrams you can use. This is particularly for environment and science and tech. In science and tech and environment you can use it. Suppose there was question on CCUS this time. So I made a very simple schematic diagram as how capture is taking place. It is getting sequestrated and then it is being stored. So basic diagram you can use. In environment also, you can try to make schematic diagrams, or you can make certain hub and spoke models to show what the things that are changing. So you can use that here. And I think this is what agriculture also. Here you one thing that is very important is government schemes. I will write it separately. Government schemes helps a lot economy as well as agriculture. You need to remember certain schemes that are how they are enhancing the agricultural productivity and other stuff, so that it will work. Lastly is the GS4. Luckily in both my attempts I have secured 125 plus in GS4, and for that I have kept my answers quite natural. I didn't try to make it look mechanical or try to make it look, bookish language. So for GS4, my simple strategy was, again, here completion is a target. So I practiced 4 to 5 full length tests before going to the main actual mains examination. So here focus on fast reading of case study. So case study completion is very important. Then next thing which I worked a lot on was not to read any book. I just read topper answers. I read topper answers. This had worked for me, believe me. Then syllabus is very important for it. Whatever the keywords are there, you need to write definitions and everything for that. So keywords worked for me. I had tried to extract as many as keywords I could from the syllabus only. I used to read topper answers, how they are trying to articulate their answers, and finally I tried to write examples. And believe me, when I'm trying saying examples, my examples used to be diverse, not only of civil servants, but I used to quote our religious text. I used to quote Mahabharata, Ramcharitmanas. I used to quote our historical ancestors, such as the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Maharana Pratap. So I used to quote what their value systems were. So that worked for me. I also quoted about civil servants and other thing, but I tried कि मेरे जो answers हो, the example should be something which is coming from my side, not only from the book. So this was the broad thing which worked for me in GS4. Case study and question completion properly, reading answer copies, working on syllabus, making notes for the syllabus terms such as whatever probity, integrity, citizen charters, everything are given. So just work on it. Even here you can use diagram. For example, in EI there is always that 4 quadrants that you can show for EI, that what the 4 quadrants are, how it enhances the productivity of any person in an organization. So these type of few things you can use. So that worked for me in GS4. And believe me, if you will have a proper structure, say say this is a paper, at last I would like to say that try to complete the paper. Try to complete the paper with a proper structure. That will help you a lot. For example, if you are given a sheet, what I feel is कि don't try to leave any spaces blank in the paper. Try to fill it, because see, if this is a question, I would have started from here and would try कि मैं यहाँ पे अपने answers को complete करूँ, because if you are having a lot of quantity ना, then generally it is a perception that this guy he knows about this topic well. So that worked for me. What I figured out was कि if I am writing like this 1, 2, 3, so it is taking lesser space for me. But what I used to do was कि मैंने एक ऐसा diagram बना दिया, and then I have written 3 points like this. So this was also effective utilization of space, because I generally write slowly. So this worked for me. Try to incorporate diagrams, not in every question, but I ensured that if I'm using this diagram in say second question, then I'll use it in fifth question, then in ninth question, and so on. So this thing you can use in your paper, and just try to complete your paper with good quantity, with good content if you have. Even if you don't have, because I believe that even in my this attempt there were questions in certain GS papers which I was not well aware of. So there are also these techniques that we develop. Now we develop templates. When we write a lot of mocks, we generally brainstorm our minds. We read their answers, then we extract certain points out of it. So brainstorming definitely works. We don't have the time to think over there. Just try to think about the topics which are in news, which you are getting in mock test, which are there in the PYQs, and just try to be ready for those topics. And even if you don't know any topic properly, just try to link it anyhow and try to complete the paper, and with a proper at least structure should be there. So this was my strategy for my both the mains attempt. I think that what worked for me this time was having good content and examples along with the 2 pillars which I had developed in the first mains. So if anyone out there, he is able to balance the 3 pillars which I used, I think he will be able to get good marks in mains, and maybe next year they would be having their preferred service, they would be getting it, and they would just pass this mains with flying colors. So that was all from my side. Thank you.